Hey there, and welcome to the Emotionally Intelligent Parenting Podcast. Let me ask you a question. Does your child or teen ever lash out, shut down, or completely refuse to listen or cooperate? Maybe you've tried time-ins, timeouts, threats, bribes, punishment, all of that stuff, but they just don't work, or actually they make things worse. It's like you're adding fuel to the fire. So first thing is I have been there and I have done all of those things. Second thing is, if this sounds familiar, then you are in the right place because that is literally all I'm going to be talking about for the next 20 minutes. So the thing is that these big emotional outbursts from our kids are not a sign of them just being ridiculous, being dramatic. I don't know if you ever heard that growing up. Stop being dramatic, stop being ridiculous. They're not a sign of your child just being naughty or willful or misbehaving. There is actually so much more going on under the surface in their brain and in their body. And that is exactly what we are talking about in this episode. So today I'm going to help you understand what's really going on when your child is overwhelmed. This goes for toddlers, it goes for kids, it goes for teenagers. And actually, if you think about, if you have a partner or, other adults in your life, when you start to look at and view their emotions and behavior and their language and everything that they're doing and saying, when you start to view it from this lens, it's almost like a penny drop moment. This has been actually a game changer for a lot of clients that I have coached, a lot of parents that I work with. They are like, oh, this makes so much sense because I'm like this and I do that. So we're going to really be talking about all of this good stuff, all of things like why some of those old school parenting tactics are not helpful. Actually, at best, they're unhelpful. And at worst, I want to say they can be really damaging and just toxic sometimes. But most importantly, how can you use positive strategies to help your kids regulate their emotions and their behavior, and then get on with a day or get on with a task or cooperate or, build that connection with your child. So I'm actually really excited about this one. I hope that I'm not going to have interruptions because the kids are home and it's hot outside and they're all playing out on the street and coming in and out. So if you hear some tiny voices in the background, we're just gonna ride the wave. We're all parents here. Well, parents, therapists, professionals, whoever you are listening, hopefully you will get it, you will understand, and you won't be annoyed if I have to pause and stop and start. Okay, so let's get to it. If you're feeling ready to have less of a sense of overwhelm and frustration with your kids' sometimes challenging behavior, then you're in the right place. Just before we get started though, I do want to acknowledge the Darug Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, work and record this podcast. I pay my respects to all First Nations people, their elders and their ancestors, and I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and I stand in solidarity towards a shared future. Okay, let's dive in. All right, I'm just going to start wherever my brain goes. So I want to talk a little bit first. We kind of have to rewind, I think, when we're relearning something or learning something new, challenging our beliefs and the way we do things or see things. So I'm going to rewind a little bit. I won't spend long on this, but this is kind of what I call, and a lot of other professionals call, the lens shift on behavior. So this stuff, when I do this in a workshop or at a conference or something, I'm like, I want you to think about how you were raised in regards to this stuff I'm talking about now. Because most of us will have been raised this way or parented this way. And so it kind of makes a lot of sense to us. And, we have these habits and these patterns and they sometimes run really deep. So it can be hard to overcome them. But, I think it's really important to start with, look, these are some of the things we have to change before we can actually start to shift our behavior in the moment and how we respond. Because if we're running off these old blueprints, as I call them, then we're kind of it's like an uphill battle. Okay, so the old belief, this is the old paradigm, the old belief, the old, way of seeing a child's challenging behavior when they shut down or blow up or whatever. We thought, and let's say our parents thought, that our kids were, number one, just trying to get their own way. Number two, they were just being really defiant. Number three, they were intentionally being stubborn. Number four, they were trying to seek attention. They were trying to get attention in the bad way or in a wrong way. 5, maybe they were trying to get something that they want. Maybe they were trying to, 6, avoid doing something or avoid something they don't want. Like, does that make sense? I don't want to put my plate in the dishwasher, or why do I have to do my homework? I just want you to come and play with me and you're not, so I'm going to blow up and then say you're the worst parent ever. Like, this stuff, on the surface level, it makes sense, is what I'm trying to say. And yes, a lot of us were parented this way. The other penny drop moment that a lot of parents have when I talk about this is that also the belief was, once a child has shown that they can do something, like get ready for school on their own, eat the bolognese that you made, share with their brother or sister, whatever. Once they have shown that they can do that or behave a certain way, then they should be able to do it every time because they can do it. They've mastered the skill, right? Like, that makes sense on the surface level. It sounds like, yeah, what's wrong with that? So I'm going to burst your bubble if that makes sense to you. And like I said in the intro, a lot of this stuff, this is what I used to believe. This is how I used to think. Like, my kids, especially our oldest, because he's 10 and a half now, man, he got this parenting when he was young. Alex and I, my husband, often say that our youngest, though, probably didn't really get Steph and Alex 1.0, because this was around the time we were learning about emotional intelligence, and I moved away from speech pathology. That was my career, my first career, and into emotional intelligence. So she kind of, she was in that transition period. Lucky her. Okay, so that stuff makes sense. That's the old belief, though. So this is why a lot of the time, parents who, even nowadays, right, because this is still not mainstream parenting with emotional intelligence, responsive parenting, we could call it conscious parenting, respectful parenting, gentle parenting, and particularly the science, there's a lot of science and research behind emotional intelligence, and behind responsive and conscious parenting and things like that. People who are not yet on that train kind of thing, don't know about it, they will often say things like, why on earth are you doing that? Or why are you being like this? It's confusing, it's baffling, it's frustrating, right? It makes us angry. So I want to shift you guys out of that belief and that lens, out of what I was just talking about, into 4 really simple words. All behavior makes sense. I know that can take time to get our head around, be like, yeah, I mean, I kind of get that, or mostly makes sense, but what about when my child does this? So trust me when I say that, and maybe when I go through some more of this stuff that I'm talking about today with behavior and the nervous system, then it's going to make a whole lot more sense. Okay, let's jump into the lens shift on behavior. So this new understanding that we have now, a few kind of pieces of the puzzle, because I'm not going through, sometimes I go through this in an hour-long masterclass. I'll run masterclasses every month or two. I run them online. Please keep an eye on my website if you ever want to learn about this kind of stuff in depth more. But I'm kind of just taking a surface level look, if that makes sense. Okay. So the new understanding is that behaviors are simply an observable response from someone's body. As scientific and as dry as that sounds, a behavior is just what we observe another person doing, right? It's the movement of their arms. It's the volume of their vocal, of their voice, right? The tone of their voice and the facial expression. It's all that stuff. So we can look at it really objectively and really scientifically. And I actually encourage parents to do that a lot because, we'll go through reasons why later, but it means that we are actually seeing things a lot more clearly and we take things a lot less personally, which was a big problem of mine, a big struggle of mine before I learned this stuff. Okay, second new belief is that behavior is just what we call a smoke signal, quote unquote smoke signal, okay? It's an alert to you that your child cannot handle the demands on them in this moment. They can't handle the expectations. They can't handle the situation or what you're asking. But if they could handle it, they would, right? If they could just do the thing coolly, calmly, easily, and life would be easy for them, things would work out, they wouldn't get told off, they wouldn't get maybe put in timeout, whatever. If they could do the thing, they just would, because that's the easy path. Everyone wants to take the easy path as a human. It's kind of human nature, right? No one really wants to make things more difficult for themselves. It doesn't end well. It usually ends in, for parents who are not raising their kids this way, that usually ends in a threat, a bribe, a punishment, a timeout, or a consequence, things like that. So let's park that for a second. Last thing is that behavior just shows how your nervous system is constantly regulating your body's response to stress. So there's like a constant fluctuation and regulation going on internally, okay, based on so much stuff that we're not going to go through right now. But that's what your behavior is kind of showing. When I am regulated, so my energy and my system kind of matches the needs of the situation, then I will have, I suppose, what you would call appropriate behavior. So that might mean if I'm at let's say I'm at a funeral, sorry to be morbid, I don't know why that popped in my head, then if I am regulated, if my body is regulated and my nervous system is, I would be able to match my energy and my behavior and my body and everything to the situation, which means being quiet, being, having a low energy, speaking in a low tone or low volume, moving slowly and things like that. You wouldn't want to, like, if you're not regulated and not matching the situation, you'd be, I don't know, your arms would be flailing like you're at a party and you'd be like, hey, what's happening? It would obviously not match. Okay, so behavior, now we're kind of seeing it really differently. We're seeing it in terms of the nervous system, the body, the brain, regulation, is it matching the situation, and just making it a lot more scientific and a lot less of guesses and judgments and things like that. So something else that I want to mention, which is again a huge topic, but we're going to touch on it, is this concept of our nervous system. Even if you don't fully understand like what is the nervous system, and there are different nervous systems. I'm talking about the autonomic nervous system. It's just a part of our body internally that essentially acts like a scanner. I want to say like a scanner. It kind of scans the environment, the people in it, the situation, the environment. It scans unconsciously for us to determine whether there's any threat or any danger or anything that basically is going to be a threat to our survival. It gathers information from around us and it kind of perceives it, like I said, unconsciously. So it's doing it all the time, even now as you're listening to this podcast, and even now as I'm sitting in my little office recording this, my body's doing it for me. So is yours, or I should say your nervous system. If you heard, let's say that you heard a massive like crash outside the window that whatever window is like nearest to you, your body would automatically move into this fight or flight state. This is what your nervous system is doing for you. It picks up that there's some kind of threat, some kind of danger, something's happening out there, and your heart would race, your breathing would increase, your blood would flow to your extremities, like getting you ready to literally mobilize. And it activates you to like move, get out of the way. That's flight, or to fight that, the danger or the threat, whatever's there. So it's you might be able to tell, it's very primitive. It was obviously very survival based when it helped us in caveman times, like literally those sort of that era. Now we obviously don't have a lot of those threats, but we have different ones and we have different stresses, and so do our kids. And for us, what might push us into fight or flight could be our nervous system picking up cues of a threat or danger with our kids when they're arguing, or our partner if they come home and say, honey, we need to talk, like put everything down, come in the lounge room, like, sitting in traffic, that can make our heart race, our boss walking in when we haven't finished that project we're supposed to, like endless amounts of things, right? So just take away from this that your nervous system is like this scanner that is kind of constantly on alert for you, and it will move you out of this state of regulation if it senses some kind of threat or danger. So that's its main job, safety versus threat. Am I good? Am I at ease? Is there no danger? Like, am I safe? Am I comfortable? And things like that. So when we talk about our kids who are getting really overwhelmed and they either erupt, like they go aggressive, or they fight, they go into that fight, right? Or kids that maybe shut down and go inward and close off and are like non-responsive or ignore you, either way, we can now see that that means their nervous system is overwhelmed. It's like off kilter. It's out of balance. It's their nervous system and the threat or danger it's perceiving is not like, that's not matching. Potentially, it might not be matching the situation. You might have just asked them to, turn off the iPad and come for dinner, and then they erupt. We don't know what is going on beneath our kids' iceberg every second of the day. It is fluctuating. There are things that we may not ever be able to see. Some things we might be able to guess, like let's say if it was a school day, they had a huge incident with a bully that day that we didn't know about, or they didn't take their lunch to school and we didn't realize, or they had an argument with a friend, or they think they bummed the test that was important. There's so many things, right? That when we take a second to be a little bit more, I suppose, patient, a bit more curious, and think about their behavior from this lens, then we start to go, I wonder what is going on for my child in this moment. Like, what has led up to this? Or, how can I'm not going to take this personally, because usually they're fine to, tidy up their clothes and put them in the cupboards, or usually they're fine to share the remote with their brother watching this TV show. Something isn't right, like something's off, or something's getting in the way of them doing the thing, right, that I've, let's say, asked them to. So if we go back to the nervous system for a little bit, we can think of in terms of three pathways of the nervous system. We could call them like three zones that our child, and remember us too, could be in. If we go through, so I love Dr. Mona Delahooke and her work around the nervous system and the lens that she has on behavior and everything. It's very science-based, which I love. And she talks about the colors, green, red, and blue. Nothing to do with the actual colors, of course, but it's just like an easy way to kind of, categorize these different states of the nervous system. So we can think about, again, super like bird's eye view on this. So I'm not going into the science of it. I'm just like, this is a podcast episode. So I want to kind of give you guys an overview and make you just think, right, about your kids' behavior when they're not being cooperative and they're being really frustrating. I want you guys to think of this stuff. So the green pathway is when our nervous system, or our child's nervous system, is not sensing a threat. They are sensing safety. So physical safety, wherever they are, home, classroom, whatever, and relational safety. So safety with the people that I'm around. I can be myself, I can mess up, I can make mistakes, I'm not going to get yelled at, blah, 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 blah. And emotional safety, psychological safety, things like that. So when our kids are on the green pathway or the green zone, they will feel safe, they will potentially feel happy, calm, at ease. They'll be able to connect with you and the people around them socially. They'll be able to engage, they'll be able to have a conversation, maybe laugh, take jokes and things like that, get their work done. So be playful, learn, listen, engage, all of that stuff. So this is where we love our kids to be. I admit it, I love it when my kids are in the green zone. This is where teachers love their students to be, because they're engaged and they're open, receptive. That is one pathway. The second one is I don't like the color, like it's just helpful, but I don't like this connotation of red is bad. Anyway, red equals fight or flight. Just a color, remember? When our nervous system detects a threat or a danger, right? And again, this doesn't have to be physical. They could be, let's say your child is in the classroom and it is a physically very safe place to be. There's just kids and desks and toys and, I mean, not toys, but like physically it can be a safe environment, but your child can be picking up cues of danger left, right, and center because of maybe the teacher, maybe because of the bully 2 rows back, maybe because of the sensory environment that they're in, the noises, the lights, the sound, like all of that stuff that can be overwhelming to the nervous system and present as like a pressure, a threat, a danger. So when a child or an adult, their nervous system moves on to the red pathway, then they're in some level of fight or flight, low or high, like low level fight or flight, or like full blown. They feel unsafe. And again, this can be unconscious. So they might not like realize, they might be sitting in class or watching TV, but they might not be actually feeling regulated. They feel like there is some level of danger or threat. Maybe they feel anxious. Oh my goodness. I did recently an episode on anxiety and emotional intelligence, so please find that if this is resonating with you. They might be feeling angry, they might be feeling frustrated, they might seriously feel like they need to run or fight. Okay, so they're feeling frustrated, mad, anxious, rigid, listening is switched off, thinking brain is offline, no learning is happening. So is this ringing some bells when we feel like we are teaching our kids a lesson or giving them a consequence so that they learn not to do that behavior ever again? If we're pushing them into fight or flight and yelling at them or saying, right, no iPad for a week, I can't believe you drew on the walls, you're 7, you know not to do that. They're in fight or flight, no listening happening. They're really not learning. They're really not taking it in. They're really not comprehending the meaning of what you're saying. They are just feeling super angry or maybe embarrassed or ashamed that they got caught, or, they're plotting how mean you are as a parent, how you didn't see their brother started it and that you're always on their side. Like, I could go on. Third one is the blue pathway, or we could call it the blue zone. This is where your child can unconsciously feel like the threat or danger is too great for them to even fight or run away from. Side note, if you have heard me talk about my fainting as a child, teenager, and into my 20s, this is where I went, which I'm still, to be honest with you, unpacking. Like, I've unpacked a lot of it, and I've had so many penny drop moments. I'm like, oh my God, that was me. Suffice it to say, again, another conversation for another episode, but this is where I went in certain situations. So the blue pathway is, I can't cope anymore. The threat is too great. I'm collapsed. I'm shut down. I am under a massive pile of rubble. Like, it's really helpless. So it's feeling helpless, it's feeling overwhelmed, and it's shutting down. Interestingly, how interesting is this? In animals, it looks like playing dead. In humans, it looks like dissociating, shutting down, going quiet, ignoring, going unconscious, which can be, number 1, fainting, which is what I did, or number 2, going to sleep. And I know that might sound ridiculous, but I have had so many conversations with so many parents in my coaching, and when I've done conferences, they come up to me afterwards and they go, Steph, I remember, and I realize as a kid when I was getting yelled at or told off, and I would be getting told off, and I would be feeling really sleepy, and I would have to I'd be almost falling asleep, and I'd get yelled at even more because it looked like I was just, sleeping whilst I was getting yelled at. And I was like, yep, that's exactly what was happening. Your body and your nervous system was shutting down. So now you guys get a little bit of the nervous system. Again, that was just like a bird's eye view. So I want you guys to think about what causes your nervous system to go into fight or flight. Is it your husband saying your in-laws are coming for dinner in half an hour? Is it hearing a scream from your kid's room at 8 a.m. or 4 a.m.? I don't know. Is it getting a text from your partner saying, I'm unhappy, we need to talk? Is it an email from your boss about a project that you thought you smashed and, they're obviously cranky about it? I don't know. Is it traffic on an important day? So many things. So when you understand just a little bit about your own nervous system and how it works, like these three zones or pathways, then guess what? We look at our child. I look at my 2 kids and I'm like, no wonder you did that. This makes sense. Of course. I promise you guys, very, very few times do I ever now go, what? What is going on? Why did you do that? Or what happened? Remember those 4 words, all behavior makes sense. I promise you, that is so true when you understand this stuff. So I'm going to fast forward because we're at about 20 something minutes, and I thought this was going to be a 20-minute conversation. I just want to bring to your attention that our society tells us to give our kids who are on the red pathway and they are being aggressive or they're shutting down or they're running off or whatever, they're in fight or flight. Our society tells us to give them more consequences, to give them harsher consequences. They need more punishment, to threaten them to take away a toy if they don't stop being so ridiculous. Shaming, yelling, timeouts. Good Lord. Now, hopefully, people are realizing that this stuff is pushing our child or teen further onto the red pathway than they already were. Like if you think about it, if a child is, I hate this word, misbehaving, not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and you throw out a threat or a consequence, like in what world is that going to make them regulated, feel calmer and more connected to you, and then more cooperative and do the thing that they're supposed to be doing? Like in what world? And like, I know I'm sounding incredulous, but this is the way I used to think. And I would have clung to it. I would have been like, nope, my kid, if my kid is not being, not getting the bath when I ask them to, yes, they're going to get a smack. Like, jeepers, I've been there, guys. So I really like the kind of idea that, and this is what I share a lot, is that we're not, the aim is not to keep our child on the green pathway or in the green zone 100% of the time. Think about that. That's where we love our kids to be. That's where we like our partners to be. Our goal cannot be let me start that again. Our goal cannot be to have our kids on the green pathway all the time. I think you can guess why now. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you love or at least enjoy hearing about emotional intelligence, and hopefully you've listened to a couple of episodes or you've followed me with other stuff on social media, and I talk about the fact that being emotionally intelligent does not mean we are happy all the time and we are cool, calm, collected robots and we never feel frustration or anger. No. So we don't want to have them on the green pathway all the time. We want to be able to help them and eventually teach them to move between the different zones or pathways in a healthy way. So to move onto the red, into the fight or flight, but then come back, right? Without enough anger, there's a saying, I can't remember it, but something like, without enough anger, we lose our place in the world and our sense of selves and who we are and what we stand for. Imagine if you never got angry. Anyway, so yes, when I show this kind of, I have a slide that goes with this this kind of topic and this concept, and one of them has these different, it's a picture of, like, if you imagine a silhouette of a body, it's got the nervous system going from the brain all throughout all the vital organs, all to the like ends of the toes and fingers and things like that, and then it has the 3 different pathways, green, red, blue, and I specifically put, instead of arrows like just from the red to the green, for example, I did circulating arrows that go all around the different states of the nervous system. So all the red, the green, the blue, because that is our goal, to be able to move through like the different states healthily in a period of a day or whatever, and to have the human experience. So we have to allow, here we go, we have to allow our kids to be able to do that too. Don't tell them off when they're in the red zone. Don't tell them off when they're in the blue zone. Be like, get up. Why are you not listening? Get off the floor. Stop crying. Why are you not listening? Why are you not responding? Don't ignore me. Like, don't just boop. Pause on all of that. Think about this stuff. I do have a course called Decoding and Diffusing Challenging Behaviour, and I talk about all of this stuff and more. I will put the link and stuff in the show notes, but this is the stuff, like when you are faced with a challenging behaviour like that or any of these, then I want you guys to think of this stuff, the nervous system, the different pathways or the different zones, and what not to do, which I just talked about, threats, bribes, punishment, consequences, like all of that stuff, and what to do, which let's wrap up with what to do. Okay, so what to do is, number 1, notice what the early warning signs for your child are. See if you can start to become like a scientist, like someone who's really curious about, what led up to this moment? Or what biomarkers, we call them, can I notice on my child? The biggest one, I think this, I don't know if this came from my speech pathology days. Probably somewhat. The biggest giveaway of what state your child's nervous system is in is their tone of voice. Isn't that wild? If you take away one thing from this podcast episode, let it be that, what can I notice about my child's tone of voice when they're speaking to me or to their sibling or someone else? What can I notice? or maybe you can get more attuned about what your child normally sounds like when you're just having a conversation with them. Guess what happens when your child is a little bit irritated or agitated, like they're going off the green pathway a little bit onto the light red. That's how I think of it. In my kids, and actually in me, their voice, the pitch elevates. It just goes up a little bit. So I know, and maybe if you're a mum or a woman listening to this, you'll resonate with this. If I get really emotional, my voice starts to go up here and I can't really talk. Like, please tell me I'm not alone that happens. So tone of voice is a big one, especially for kids. It will usually go up straight away. Take that as an early warning sign about their nervous system. If you ask them, what do you want for lunch? And they're like, I don't know. And then you think, oh, that sounds a bit different. And then you say, well, come on, like I've got the sandwiches out, or do you want peanut butter, or do you want a salad sandwich? And they go, I don't know. Then you go, ooh, bingo. Huge early warning sign. Okay, so quickly, let's wrap up with some more. Noticing some other signs, which could be their facial expression. Huge giveaway there. It can be their body language. So they move from being kind of like, imagine like fluid, playful, fun, moving around, or relaxed, watching TV or iPad or something, to more like rigid behaviors, like jerky movements and things like that. You know, when you're kids, like for those of you who are not listening to this as a podcast, but you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see what I do. Sometimes if my kids are getting agitated with each other, they'll kind of like clench their fists, the facial expression goes, right? And then they move in like a jerky way. And they're like, I don't care. Like, give it to me. You know, they start moving in a really rigid way. They're not as fluid and flexible and things like that. I think you guys are getting what I'm saying. So noticing the early warning signs, sometimes it's things like extreme silliness, or it's like being indecisive, especially if you have younger kids, but don't write this off if you have teenagers. Verbal grunts and growls and hissing and like, ugh, that stuff, massive giveaway. Please see this as an early warning sign, not as rudeness or disrespect. I know it's going to look 100% like your child or your teen is being disrespectful. Don't hiss at me, or don't say, ugh, say no thanks. Like, but just go with me on this. When you start to change the way you respond to these behaviors, whoa, game changer. It could be inattentiveness. It could be kind of a bit of chaos, like chaotic play or hyperactivity and things like that. Goes without saying, things like antagonizing siblings. And, it could be hitting, throwing, kicking, stuff like that. So noticing the early warning signs is a huge one. And then last thing I'm going to say is, what regulates your child? What, let's say, calms them if they're building, if their volcanoes at like 30%, 50%, like, and you can see they're on their way to a meltdown. Please, like, okay, think about, what does my child love to do with me? Like, what calms them? What helps maybe regulate them? Is it being a bit playful and silly? Is it like poking fun at yourself? Sometimes that can work. Sometimes that can go down in flames. Is it making a joke? I have some parents who I know clearly have said, oh, that's really great. It breaks the ice kind of thing. For other parents, they're like, man, if I crack a joke, my child will like hiss at me. So just get to know. You're not going to get it perfect all the time, by the way. I should have said that earlier at the start. Get to know what might help them. Very often it is saying very little, so reducing your language. I want to say like removing the demands in the situation. That could be saying, you know what, let's leave homework. Come on, let's pack it up. Let's go outside, let's play, or let me make you a snack or whatever, if homework is annoying them. It might be moving environments. If it's a sibling like antagonistic thing, move environments. Say, you know what, you come with me, I'm going to set the puzzle up for you and you can finish playing with a train, I don't know. It can also be like, think of this sensory environment, right? Is the TV on and the dog barking and then the kids playing a loud video game down the back of the house? Like, what is going to help diffuse the emotional charge and the situation that's happening for your child? Okay. So it could be things like, okay, you know what, let's pop some music on. Do you want to come on my lap? And we'll just sit, like for both of my kids, sometimes sitting on my lap and just having a hug, and just me putting down my phone or my laptop or my work. Like that is like gold to them. So just play around with, like, get to know what helps them, right? What can, sort of help regulate their nervous system. I think one of the big ones I want to say is removing the demands in the situation. Let's say it is homework, or let's say it is, the putting the plate in the dishwasher. Do not feel like you are being a pushover and your child is like calling the shots, and getting their way. If you go intentionally, let's leave this for now and we'll come back to it. Or maybe we won't come back to it, but give your child the benefit of the doubt that they need you and they need some calm, and things like that. So obviously it goes without saying, calming yourself, maintaining or managing your own body language can be very hard when we see a child who is what we see to be being ridiculous, or acting like a 2-year-old. It can be really hard to manage our facial expression and our tone of voice. And so that is something that we can be much more mindful of, I think. Obviously it goes without saying that we keep our child safe in those moments if they are, building up to or at the point of a meltdown and their nervous system is completely overwhelmed. Then keep them safe, but support them, be present if you can, if they allow you to, reduce demands, reduce your language. There's a whole lot of stuff. I go into this more in like courses and things like that. So without going on more, because I realize now we're like way longer than I planned this to be. As you can tell, I love this stuff, but I pack a lot of this information and I make it really practical when I do run a course on it or a masterclass. One of the ones at the moment that is a consistently popular course of mine is the one that's on this exact topic, because so many parents struggle with it, and it's called Decoding and Diffusing Challenging Behaviour with Your Kids. So I think it's pretty much, a one-ish hour course all up if you smash out all the modules kind of thing. Like this is, something that I think, like I said, it's a universal challenge for parents. We weren't raised knowing this stuff. Our parents weren't. So I kind of put it all together. I guess what I wanted to be able to provide for parents and teachers is that the stuff that took me years to learn, I kind of want to fast track it for people. You don't read all the books and listen to all the podcasts and take all the courses. Like that stuff is great. Don't get me wrong. But if you want like distilled information about what's going to really help you with your kids and their behavior and their emotions, then, go and look up that course. You can find the link in the show notes. I'll put it in there, but just quickly, it is stephaniepinto.com/courses. You'll be able to find it there. So, okay, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you found that really interesting, really insightful, hopefully uplifting. Like there is so much we can do when our kids are in those really overwhelmed, stressful moments. We don't have to add fuel to the fire. We don't have to make it worse if we know just some little tweaks and changes we can make. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for listening and for sticking with me so long, and little tiny interruptions that hopefully I edited out seamlessly, but we'll find out. Okay. Stay safe, everyone. Keep raising those emotionally intelligent kids and be kind to yourself. You do not have to get this stuff perfect. Okay, take care.